G'day and welcome from sunny Adelaide, Australia. Welcome to this Open LMS live session, and really excited to be here with my colleagues globally. We have a fantastic lineup for you today, and we're going to start in terms of the agenda, so you can just see what we're going to look at. We're going to have a welcome message from Phil Miller, our Managing Director here at Open LMS. We're then going to have an introduction to eCreators from Dean, and then we're going to go through and have a really great session around incorporating virtual classrooms into Open LMS. Then we're going to really round off the session looking at our new release that's coming out in Maintenance Pack number 2, and then we're going to finish up with Q&A. So feel free to add questions to the chat, and we'll address those at the end. So I'll now hand over to Phil to welcome you all to this session.
Hi, everyone. I guess good morning to all of those of you in Australia and in most of Asia Pacific. For those of you that are joining from the west coast of the United States or something, good afternoon or good evening. My name is Phil Miller. I'm the Managing Director of Open LMS, and I'm just so delighted that you're here. Open LMS, about 6 months ago, we started our new phase of life, our new phase of growth, and there's just been a lot of amazing things that have been happening. We've made a lot of investments in the product, in our team, and just really preparing to try to better serve you better. So we're delighted that you guys are here. We're delighted that you guys are a part of our community. And we're also very excited to share with you our latest investment in Asia Pacific specifically, which is the acquisition of eCreators, which was, I guess, as of a few hours ago, the largest independent Moodle provider in Australia and in Asia Pacific, and is now part of the Open LMS family. We're so delighted to have this team on board. We think it's going to just add a huge bolt of energy to our community, a huge amount of energy to our team, a huge amount of talent. They've got 28 amazing individuals who are now part of our team, based for the most part in Melbourne, Australia, although I'm learning the names of a lot of cities in and around Victoria that some of them hail from. But it's really delightful to have them as part of the team. It's another example of our growth and our investment. They've also got some great features and services that they offer, which we're now going to be able to offer to all of our Open LMS clients. So we're so glad you're here. I'm so delighted that you're part of our community. Thank you for growing with us as we go through all of these changes. We think that you're going to like the company that we're becoming. And with that, I want to introduce, I think for the first time to the Open LMS community, Dean Saunders, who is the new head of product for Open LMS, formerly, I think as of just a few hours ago when the transaction closed, the CEO of eCreators. Hi, Dean.
Hey, Phil, how you doing?
Doing well. Good evening. You ready to show us some stuff this evening?
Morning? Sure am, yeah.
Morning, this evening, whatever it is for you.
Let's go. Yeah.
All right, well, Dean, take it away.
Great. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for having me along today for a bit of a chat. My first official chat as a member of the Open LMS team. So I may have met some of you along the path. Obviously, we have a large complement of clients that we're bringing into the Open LMS family, and a great deal of new things are coming your way. I'm taking on the role of a VP of product across the Open LMS group, and what does that mean? It means a lot of things. It means we'll be bringing you a whole stack of new toys, of new features, of new pieces of functionality, of things that will make your lives better and certainly the lives of your learners. We're a group of people who've been spread across the world. We have predominantly our client base in Southeast Asia, represents about 3.5 million learners across TAFE colleges, across corporate organizations, government organizations, police forces, the military, people who use learning technology products in different ways. So you're going to be able to, I guess, have advantage of all of that experience, of all of the previous work we've done across a range of different sectors, now available to your organizations as well, which I'm really excited about. I'm here to hear your pain points as well too, so Whenever you have things that you don't like about our products, I want to hear about them first and make sure that we act swiftly on them. Obviously, as a part of this acquisition as well, we bring across to you something that Open LMS hasn't really had before, which is a dedicated content team. So we're one of Australia's largest content providers, so content development houses. We have a number of in-staff animators, fine artists, instructional designers, and the like, who produce some great content. In fact, some award-winning content, which you can sort of see down there on the recent LearnX Awards for any of you that were along to see those. So we won awards right across the spectrum, really. So for platform, for content development, for our culture, our tagline, "Love the way you learn," which is going to be inherent across the new product portfolio. Will really show you some of the things that we're capable of and some of the things you'll see. If I go to the next slide, I'll be able to talk to those in some minor level of detail. But these are some of the extra things that we have in our technology stack and things that we'll be introducing into the core product as we follow that mission to create the best middle-based platform in the world. So we can offer content development services at any level. So we do a lot of rapid bespoke content development right up to highly interactive modules for representing clients like Electronic Arts, Nissan, Porsche, a whole heap of blue chip clients across the world. We have programs and compliance features. So programs and compliance features are obviously prevalent very much in the corporate space. They're also going to be available in core soon. Obviously e-commerce. So we're looking forward to sort of showing you how you can monetize your platform. So obviously in a world of COVID where a lot of learners or different audiences are harder to approach, we're going to show you ways you can attract those audiences to the platform and obviously put a monetization layer on top of your existing technology stack. We have a federated content store. The federated content store is something which allows you to share your content between any other learning management system in the Open LMS field. So you'll be able to unlock content, give people access to your content really quickly. It takes 2 or 3 clicks and you're done. So we're excited for that. Obviously, team management and skills framework. The skills framework you'll love to look up. So if any certified training that you may have or accredited training you may have that is residential to your LMS, we're able to make those skills migratory. So we can take those skills, a learner can take those skills from one LMS to another. Anything within our ecosystem allows for the portability of those skills. Learner Backpack is another feature that we'll be introducing soon too, and a great one which allows you to manage and deploy multiple sites. We've seen this work very successfully in universities in the past where there's a master LMS and each faculty has their own separate subtenant. So I'm really excited to show you that at some stage as well. And a great one that we have at the moment too is our off-the-shelf content subscription. So we have a number of free modules. There'll also be a more commercialized model coming soon as well, which will give you regular content served to your LMS. So you can choose to subscribe to that service or choose from the free stuff to give your learners a more broad offering of content on the LMS. I consider the LMS to be a system that needs to be utilized more and more every day. And I think over the past few months, we have seen obviously an increased level of utilization right across the board, across every sector. So getting more value out of your LMS is what I'm about, and certainly what we're looking at as we slowly roll out all of these new things. Now, we're not going to give them to you all at once. I wouldn't do that to you. I think that's an ineffective way to go, but we will be having a release cycle of a lot of these new features, and I look forward to you guys enjoying using them as much as we've enjoyed creating them. So thank you very much for that intro, Mark. And again, I'm happy to answer any questions at the end of this prezzo.
Great. So thanks heaps for Dean, and certainly here at Open LMS, really excited with all this value that eCreators is bringing. And more importantly, really excited about what that means in terms of education and training, and what it means to your experience around enhancing your learning and teaching, or your learning and development opportunities. So one of the things that we're going to do slightly different in today's session is, instead of being all about the product release, what we're going to do is every now and then we're going to focus on particular subjects of interest. And today's is all about virtual classrooms, thinking about how do you enrich the learning experience with that. So as we think about that, the thing I want you to do at the moment is jump into our community site, if you've got that on the side, and jump in and go to the link that's there on the screen, where I've got a couple of polls that are available. Just really keen to get your input around blended learning or biochronous learning, which we're going to talk about in a moment, and also about virtual classrooms. So jump in, you can see it there on the screen, and just have a look at those polls. Love you to go in, and as we go through this session, we'll bring that feedback into it. So let me start by setting some context. What we've seen over a period of time is a lot of our learning has been face-to-face. And then over time, we've seen that develop more to an online. And so during that process, where we hear about that blend of face-to-face and online, which is that hybrid mode of learning. And then we hear that terms like blended synchronous, whereas that blend of face-to-face and online, that's taken that synchronous approach. And then we hear terms like asynchronous online learning and asynchronous online learning. And when we look at what's happening today, particularly as of the results of the COVID-19 that we're currently experiencing, what we now see termed is this phrase called biochronous online learning, which is really that combination of this online learning and asynchronous online learning. And again, this is a phrase that's been published in some recent articles in EDUCAUSE by a group from the University of North Carolina. And what's interesting is this idea that institutions and organizations are now thinking about this approach. And when we talk about biochronous online learning, what we're really talking about is this blend of asynchronous and synchronous learning. And what we need to think about, and what the challenge is that I'm seeing in institutions and organizations, is how do you actually integrate the best of both of those practices? And again, that's where we come into play. So when you think about the typical environment that institutions and higher education or education places have, what you see here is a lot of the focuses have been around asynchronous online learning. That learning that happens anytime, anywhere. And again, that's where Open LMS and eCreators in their Learn book really shine in that space. There's lots of tools available to create in learning and teaching or learning development. That's really exciting. That's engaging and really enriches the learning experience. And then we go to the other end, where we've got that synchronous online learning, that learning that happens in real time. And again, that's where the virtual classroom comes into being. And in my discussions with institutions and organizations, the challenge for them is, how do you integrate the best of both? And whilst we can spend days and days talking about the Open LMS and how that works really well, and the best of those features, we're actually going to just focus for a moment on the virtual classroom. So again, when we think about the poll that I've got up there, what's your experience like with biochronous Bicronus online learning. So what we're talking about is, what's your experience with both asynchronous and asynchronous learning? Is it excellent? Is it very good? Satisfactory? Needs attention? Or needs considerable attention? And again, if we look at the results, typically what you find is most people are comfortable around 3 and 4. They sort of are aware of what it is, but really need to work at how do you make it effective so you really create a good learning experience. And so what I'm going to do is just touch on this in a moment and give you one really good tip for you to try when you get back to work. So why are virtual classrooms being used to enrich the learning experience? And I think when we think about this, there's really three reasons. The first, I think, is the key. It's really around learning engagement. The reason why people love the use of virtual classrooms is that active discussion, that immediate feedback, that personal interaction, whether it's between students, between the student and the tutor, or if you're in the workplace, between you and the facilitator. And when you're in that environment, what the general feeling is people feel isolated. Don't feel as isolated is because they're participating. They're actively involved in the learning. So that's the first key reason. The second one is really around dynamic learning. When you're in that virtual classroom, you get to explore topics real time. You get to discuss ideas and fantastic concepts, which is great. And people love that. It's in real time. You can actively involve and further explore the topic, which relates to the third one, this in-depth discussion that takes place, where you've got the opportunity to ask those key questions, to get clarification on issues or matters that are coming up. And so really they're the three reasons why people love incorporating synchronous online learning into their asynchronous practices. So you get that really good blend of, okay, there's a bunch of things I can do anytime and anywhere, but there's some really key elements that I need to go through in real time. And that is really the key. It's around learner engagement. So when we think of Bicronus online learning, the focus really needs to be around learner engagement. And so when we think about learner engagement, we know that if you're a facilitator, an instructor, a teacher, you've got to really start thinking about, how do I do this well? How do I get students really involved in their learning? And really, the key to it is well-designed learner engagement and learner interaction opportunities. It's really thinking about, how can you do this effectively? How can you stimulate student engagement that results in positive learning outcomes? And it's thinking about, how do you use the technology effectively to really make that happen, to get those students engaged in the learning? How do you get them actively involved? How do you get them collaborating? And how do you give them access to that authentic assessment experience or real world examples? And that's the value that virtual classrooms can bring in. And so usually this is the typical type of scenario I face when I'm working with lots of different organizations or educational institutions. It's this idea of, there's all these tools that are available in the virtual classroom, but which are the ones I use when to really get that interaction and engagement with my students happening? And so we need to think about, with the virtual classroom, Are we using a virtual classroom that is built for education? And we know that there are a lot of virtual classrooms out there. It's one of the, and are they all built for education? It's probably one of the reasons why we've teamed up with Blackboard and using Collaborate, because they do have these tools that are there to stimulate engagement. And that's really the focus of bringing in that best practice from that asynchronous learning and bringing that real-time experience into the learning journey. And so when we think about your experience with virtual classrooms, how would you rate yourself? Is it excellent, very good, satisfactory, needs attention, or needs considerable attention? And again, when I do this with people, often it's around the satisfactory and needs attention, mainly because they sort of understand how the tools are used, but not necessarily how they're used effectively to enrich the learning experience, to get students actively involved in that learning. And again, we're almost coming to the crux where I'm going to show you my key way or key point on how you can do that, which is this. So when you think about running these synchronous sessions in order to add value to that bicronous online learning experience, which is that blend of asynchronous, anytime, anywhere learning, and that real-time learning, you really need to plan out your session. Be clear on what tools are you going to use in the virtual classroom and why and when. And so one of the things that I do when I'm talking to educators or facilitators is I go through that with them. Work out what tools are you going to use when, so you can sequence that learning. So here's an example. I use either post-it notes or little icons like this to map out what I think I'm going to do in the session. So I'm going to remember to record, to turn my video and audio on, and then I'm going to share some content. I might like to ask a question and get students to chat about it. And I might use the whiteboard to demonstrate some ideas I'm trying to convey across to students. And then I might ask another question. But as I plan this out, I really need to understand why. Why have I decided to share files or share whiteboard? And it really gets back to that pedagogical approach that you want to take. And so how do you do that effectively when you're planning a session? And again, I'm going to try and demonstrate that to you. So no doubt a lot of you are probably new to pedagogical or learning design, and I'm going to go through this quick ABC. So when we're thinking about how do we engage students in learning, we take this approach, which is, here's some learning types, 6 very simple ones. Acquisition, talking about how do we get students the knowledge that they need to understand about the product. And then in production, how do we get them? That's the assessment component. So we've got acquisition of knowledge and skills and production. And then the other 4 really are that focus that we're talking about is around that engagement that happens, whether it's discussion, whether it's getting students practicing something, collaborating together, or investigation or inquiry. They're the activities that are going to stimulate active learning. They're the activities where you're going to bring in those authentic real-world experiences. They're the activities that you're going to get collaboration amongst peers. So as you think about those components, let's go back to what does that mean when we're looking at the virtual classroom tools? Well, it means that I could use a breakout, yes, but how do I use it well to acquire knowledge? Where do I use that same tool to do an investigation, or am I putting people into breakout groups because we're doing a one-to-one and it's an assessment task that's been demonstrated? So it's one thing to say I want to use a breakout group, but what's the underlying learning thinking as to why you're doing that? And as you can see from this example here, there are lots of tools that can fit those different learning styles. And so as a facilitator, a teacher, or an educator, we need to think about why we're using the tool and what's that learning or pedagogy behind it, so we know we're using it effectively to stimulate education and stimulate and create really good learning experiences. So let's think about this session. And this is what I did in my planning. So I thought about what is the acquisition or the knowledge and understanding I want to get across. How could I stimulate some discussion? How do I get people to investigate, or again do some more discussion? Because those last three are ways in which you get that engagement happening. And so as I think of those 4 different areas, I now then to think about what tools does the virtual classroom provide me to allow me to do that really, really well. So we're taking the best out of the virtual classroom to create an amazing learning experience. And so what we see is, we can record, we can do the audio and video, but then I'm going to share my screen. I might be demoing a key concept, whether it be sharing a video, whether it be a PowerPoint, whether it be a guest speaker that I'm introducing to students. I then may stimulate some conversation by asking questions and getting feedback from students in the chat. And then we're using that feedback in the chat to stimulate further discussion. And so now my students are actively involved in this real-time session. Then I can throw some polls to test some scenarios with the students. And again, we use that as discussion criteria to get things happening. So I'm really hoping that as I've wrapped up, I've been able to give you some tips in thinking about this new term that we're all experiencing, where everything is done online, how we use open LMS as asynchronous learning, but how do you also use the virtual classroom with that synchronous learning, so that together we're using the best of both worlds to create an amazing experience in learning that is really enriching their experience as they move forward. So now that you understand how the why behind it, I'm now going to pass over to Andy, who's going to talk a little bit more about how do you add one of these virtual classrooms into your asynchronous learning environment. And as you can see there, we've quickly thrown up the results of the poll, and we can see, that there's a lot of work that we can do in this space. So tune in, because I'm sure we're going to create more sessions like this to really help get you up to that excellent and very good stage. So thank you, and hand over to you, Andy.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Mark. That was great. And like Mark said, that was a lot of the rationalization of thinking about why and how I should be introducing this as a tool. And kind of where I'm going to jump in on this next slide is talking about the different ways to deploy that tool and add those resources to your class. So there are 3 primary different ways to integrate virtual classrooms into your experience online in the OpenLMS class that you've got access to. And the first of those that we'll see on this upcoming slide here is the custom integrations approach. Custom integrations will provide us with a opportunity to have a dedicated plugin that is an activity type for everyone to be able to use. If I could get that slide pushed one over, I can run from there. Sorry. There we go. So we do have some specific third-party vendors that have their solutions with a deep integration of the platform. That custom integration gives you a lot of advantages as far as deployment and the ability to control the deployment, as well as the ways to use it. Oftentimes, they'll include some custom functionality around managing groups and group entry into the course or the virtual classroom, as well as integrations into things like the calendar automatically and the gradebook potentially as an automatic integration. For example, the Blackboard Collaborate plugin includes all of those features, as well as linking the recording of a virtual classroom session automatically back to the activity instance. So it kind of gives you that complete loop. I've created a list here of the vendor plugins that have default availability inside the platform. So Blackboard Collaborate, Zoom, WebEx, Big Blue Button, Teams. Adobe Connect Pro is its own special beast. So if you're using that, there are very specific ways in which it integrates in very specific modes. But the others are a little bit more general in their integration. And they provide varying levels of sophistication in those integrations. If you're ever curious about whether or not the plugin that you're using or the tool that you're using has a plugin, you can always search on our plugin matrix and take a look over there. There's a nice search tool built into it that lets you find that product. And if it's listed, it's in there. If it's not, we can always take a look at it. On the next slide, we'll talk a little bit about some of the advantages of the custom integrations. And one of the ones I wanted to really highlight is that in the custom integration, it gives us a ability to more granularly control access to the tool itself. So this is particularly useful when, say, a specific department or a specific group of faculty are supposed to have access to the tool, but not everyone else in the platform should be granted access to the tool. By using a custom integration, it has granular capabilities attached to it that allow you to define inside of the role that user has. So editing teacher, you might have a distance learning teacher instead that has all of the teacher function plus the ability, in this example, to access Collaborate and add instances of Collaborate to their class. Everyone else can still use the tool when it shows up, but only those instructors with the permission or the capability added to add instances of Collaborate to their class could then have access to that tool. So it's a way for you to control access to the tool itself, as well as the ability to sort of stick within the terms of licensing that you might have arranged with whoever you're getting that tool from. Now, this is sort of more of an institutional approach, though. If everyone in the institution or everybody in a specific department are supposed to have access to this tool, a custom integration is a really easy way to go. But that's not always the case. And frankly, sometimes there aren't custom integrations out there for some providers. And so on the next slide, we'll dive into a second way to think about integrating with those solutions, which is LTI, or Learning Tools Interoperability. This is a standard defined by IMS Global that is a way to connect platforms like OpenLMS to tools like the virtual classroom. Almost all tools out there have an LTI-based integration, and that integration is advantageous to the tool vendor, right? Because now they have a way to plug into any platform. And it's also advantageous to you because you don't have to have a special thing to make it work. It's just LTI, it works. There are loads of advantages to this approach. LTI does include single sign-on functionalities. It includes the opportunity to consume grades. Moodle, the Open LMS, treats LTI as an activity, and it does allow you to assign or fetch grades depending on how those go. It's a pretty rich and robust way to go, but it's simple and more or less out of the box, which is one of the big advantages. One way in which the LTI tool really comes into play is when faculty have their own license for a tool, or you have the tool, but it just doesn't have a plugin. Or perhaps you just prefer the LTI integration. Blackboard Collaborate, for example, on my side, I use it with both the custom integration and the LTI integration simultaneously, mostly because I'm a little crazy that way. But it works in both modes. It's nice, and they both have kind of advantages and disadvantages to the way that they operate. I'm going to just say that overall, one of the big advantages of the LTI approach is that you can really tailor and customize the experience for the faculty member that wants to use that tool as well. Let's take a look at the next slide and dive into some of the ways that works. Preconfigured tools are available in the external tool plugin. The external tool plugin is the one that handles LTI for the system. So whether that's system-wide, distributed to everybody, or individual faculty in their course as a standalone, can always use LTI, but the pre-configured is a way to distribute the definition of an LTI connection to everyone in the system. The options in the settings as the administrator let me determine how it shows up. So does it show up as a pre-configured tool in the drop-down menu, as I've shown in this screenshot? Or does it show up as its own specific activity with its own icon in the activity chooser? Or you could actually do both. Sometimes, in fact, I almost always use both, because then I never lose track of where it is. Whichever path I chose to go find it, I'll find my tool. It's a really handy way to go. And if I choose in the pre-configured dropdown, when I add an external tool instance, it pre-populates with all the information that comes from the central sort of definition of that LTI connection that I built administratively for the whole site. Or if I click on the activity icon, it just automatically builds one with those pre-configured settings for me. It's really cool and really handy. One advantage of making the activity chooser definition is that you can set the icon for that as a icon from either the theme pack on the site or from the vendor that provides the tool, and then everybody sees the icon and knows what it is when they see it in the class. It's a pretty handy way to go. That's all great for sort of administratively setting it up for everybody in the system to use. But if just the one faculty member has their own personal version of a tool, maybe they bought a Zoom license and they got an LTI connector for it, they can go into the external tool settings and define their own tool. So rather than choose the pre-configured tool, I can go in and say, well, actually, I want to use the tool that's available that I have, put in those settings, poof, and run with it. So it's a really great way to connect tools, whether it's virtual classrooms or pretty much any other tool that's out there. It gives you a lot of flexibility, and it gives you a lot of opportunity to have a very streamlined, easy workflow for faculty, right? I can open up my activity chooser, I can click on the icon for the tool, and away I go. So it gives me a lot of benefit and a lot of value there. On the next slide, we'll wrap up the 3 ways to deploy these, talking about links. There are ways to do deeper integrations, but sometimes it's just not possible. There isn't an LTI option, or it's just not something I want to use. There isn't a custom integration. You can always use links to to your virtual classroom and deploy them in your class in OpenLMS to make them available. Links are going to be an HTML object, so you can put them in anything that supports HTML. You can put them in a label, you can put them in a page, you can put them in the description for an assignment. You could send them out as a notification post to everybody in the class. Whatever feels the most comfortable to you. You could also make events on the class calendar, custom events, and include the URL in the definition or description of that custom event. And that way they show up on the calendar for the students. It gives them a chance to know when that thing's happening and see it, and then chase the link when they're ready to go. I like using the calendar event along with whatever else I'm using, because that does give kind of better support for the student to remember when they're supposed to be there. And don't forget that calendars can be subscribed to, so students could be subscribing to the course calendar from the classroom that they're in with you and having that added to their Google Calendar that they use as sort of their central calendaring tool. So it would automatically push those calendar events to their personal calendar, where they're keeping track of what they're supposed to do and when they're supposed to do it. It's a pretty great sort of workflow, and it makes a lot of connectedness. On the next slide, we'll take a look at kind of one more suggestion I have around links, which is a tool called Checklist. Checklist is it's actually kind of a bundle of tools that allows you to create custom checklists of things to do and have them tracked. And the tracking can be the instructor checks them off, the tracking could be the student checks them off, or it could be that we both check them off. And I can create links to external resources in the definition of the item that's being tracked, as well as due dates for those. So I could make a checklist of all sorts of things for my class to be able to be done, but include in that checklist the virtual classroom meetings that we're planning on having, when we're going to have them, and the link to that classroom included in the description of that activity. So the student, all they've got to do is see their checklist, follow the little link icon. You can kind of see the little blue jump out link icon in those checklist screenshot right there. But they can just click on that link and go directly to the virtual classroom, and away they go. The biggest disadvantage of using links to get in there is that it's not as tight, right? There's not a single sign-on for the student. They're going to have to join as a guest or jump in the session. But most of them, if you're using tools, will do that once, and then from there on out, their cookies will remember who they are, that type of thing. And then that lack of deep integration also means that there isn't things like grades coming back and other resources like that. So it's a great tool, and it gives you a lot of power, but it certainly gives you a lot of flexibility to customize things. But just keep in mind that it's not as deep as the other approaches. So if LTI is an option, I almost always push up to LTI, because you can add things like checklists and include those activities in the checklist as well. So that's really my story that I had built up for, sort of the how to do these things once you've got them ready to go in the classrooms. Hopefully, if you've got any other questions, just hit us up on the community site and or in the Q&A session here today, and we'll follow up with all of those. I think we've got another section coming up, which is to kind of talk about that maintenance pack update. Hopefully, you guys are all excited about the next update. MP2 is being released, gosh, soon.
Absolutely. So thanks heaps, Andy. I mean, it's really exciting to see what people are doing with the virtual classrooms, how they're not only using it in teaching, but as you mentioned, how do you incorporate that into that learning experience? So thanks heaps for that. And now let's hand over to you again to work through and just tell us a bit more about this maintenance pack that's coming.
You got it. Thank you. I'm happy to. So the maintenance pack, And there are release notes that have been published out on the community now. I saw Pablo push those out earlier today, I'm going to say. And that was awesome. The release notes are there. I mean, it is a maintenance pack, so it shouldn't be earth-shattering amounts of stuff changing, but there are some really good refinements and enhancements to functionality, especially around Conduit. It has some cool new features being released. If you didn't know, there's a functionality that's been added to support custom fields in courses. So now you can store custom data about courses inside of course objects through your Conduit integration. It's kind of an exciting step towards doing really complex, interesting things. I like to nerd out about those sort of things a little bit too hard, so I'm not going to nerd out on you right now, but I'm going to probably spend some time this weekend playing around with that. You don't have to join me though. But the other enhancement in Conduit, I think, is really a really important enhancement, is the 3.8 release included the quarantine functionality in it, which is a great enhancement for Conduit and its handling of files and run times for those student information system integrations that we rely on. And this maintenance pack includes some enhancements to that quarantine functionality that allow you to create and manage alerts and notifications around the quarantine behavior, very similar to what you kind of expect from the transaction messaging behavior. So now you've got kind of more controls over that experience and more visibility into what it's actually doing for you and how it's making things operate a little bit better. I think overall, you should be really pleased with those enhancements. They look really good to me. And I think David did a great job on building that out and documenting it as well. So the release notes have some really great information in there about that component. Hopefully you're super excited about it. If you check it out and you've got some ideas, jump over to the community site and give them to us over there. I've seen David on many a day keeping his eyes peeled on suggestions in that space. So, he's bound to catch any notes that you've got. One of the other big enhancements in there, we released in the 3.8 release, the initial kind of draft or version of the centralized content management system that manages labels at that point in the release, so that you could take labels from courses, add them to this repository, and then publish them out with sort of that dynamic central control to other courses in the site. We've added pages to that functionality, and we've kind of streamlined some of the interface experience to make it a little easier to understand what's going on. And so that element is brand new with this release, with the page functionality. Just like with that label functionality in the content management system, my big ask, and I know the product team's big ask, is that you test it out, kick the tires, maybe even break it. They get tired of me breaking things, so sometimes it's nice for them to have other people break things and tell them it broke, because they get sick of hearing me tell them I broke something. But really, see if you can make it do what you'd love it to do, and see if on that journey it fails or falls apart, and let us know what you wish it could do, what it could do better, and what it's doing great. And help shape that tool as we continue to develop and build it out. We really, really could use some good feedback from some solid use on that tool. We think it does what we imagine really well. So now it's time for you to tell us what it needs to do better, or frankly, what you love about what it's doing. So if you've got a video of you using it and how it's really helping you manage lots of course content, that's a great thing too. We'll take that. But anyway, thank you for listening to that part. The maintenance pack does have a full release note set. There are some other elements in there and some functional pieces like improvements to IntelliBoard integration and some other kind of small detail features that are in that release note set that I'm not going over tonight. But I just wanted to kind of hit those real highlight things and kind of let you know what's exciting and what to expect. And we'll have a lot of information available for the 3.9 release coming up at the end of the year. And hopefully you get a lot of great stuff with that as well. That's it. Thank you.
Thanks heaps, Andy, for providing an update there. And like you said, it's going to be exciting to see now that we've got eCreators on board. You've told them they've got 3 months to see what happens in the next release. So looking forward to seeing what they come up with and how that's going to improve learning and teaching or learning and development. So now we're towards the end of our session where we're going to look at some questions. So feel free to throw them in the chat, and you've got a number of us that are willing to answer. So any questions?
Yeah, there's a first question that says, can we integrate LMS with Power BI?
There was an answer that was yes, and then it went away. And so now we need to invent another yes. And so that's on the little task lists that I like to send in pestering emails to Phil that he can now ignore and send to Dean. So, and to Pablo. So yeah, if you didn't know, Power BI, it's a tool that's in the Microsoft Office 365 tool suite. It's an analytics engine. The IntelliBoard solution up until earlier this year included within it a connector that allowed you to pump data from IntelliBoard, which was a view of your database in OpenLMS, into Power BI. They took that tool away. I don't really know the internal dynamics of it completely, but they were unhappy with having it in their tool set, so they took it away. So there is not a tool that allows you to directly dump to Power BI. There are ways to kind of shoehorn around it. We do this with Tableau and Civitas as well. You have access to a SQL dump of the database that's made nightly, so you can generate a script that goes up, downloads that SQL dump, restore it into a local MySQL database, and then direct connect that database to Power BI. It's not elegant, but it works. We'd like to get you something a little more streamlined here in the near future, though.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a new question here. It says, probably for Paulo, I would like to know if we are getting more theme options arising from eCreators acquisition. Well, that's a great question, and we have Dean from eCreators, so let's see what he has to comment.
Yeah, the very short answer is yes. Probably what I'd like to do is to get some of those theme options and a bit of an overview of some of the plugins that we'll be introducing over time onto the community site. So you can have a brief look at them, provide some input, ask some questions. Obviously, we're working for you guys at the end of the day. So wherever you see the most value in the pool of plugins that we have available, they're the ones that we're going to expedite. But we have a lovely little theme that I think you'll like a lot, which is very clean. It's obviously responsive. We'll post some photos of that to the community so you can start playing and giving feedback straight away. There's also part of that to an additional theme builder, which we've built in the background too, which allows you a lot more customization and control over your theme. So you can change front pages, you can change control panels, you can change how your menus appear, you can change different color sets, you can change the footer. So you can put in all your social links or your default URLs. A stack of new functionality comes as a part of that theme.
Yeah, that's great, and happy to bring that into the multi-tenancy. If you add that to the mix, it is just amazing the number of possibilities that you have. There's another question related to security. Is it possible for OpenLMS to implement two-factor authentication for additional security? And I'm acting like a facilitator now, but probably that's a question that I could answer myself. Yes, we have explored a couple of options related to it. They're definitely interesting elements for us to catch up there. The thing is, we want to bring that in a way that is also easy to configure for our users. So that's a key factor for us. We are still in the research phase, in order to make it happen. But that's something we can definitely discuss as part of maybe the community request for the roadmap moving forward. There is a question related to Microsoft Teams. Can we integrate OpenLMS with Microsoft Teams? So much so we can add OpenLMS as a tab in Teams. Yes, that's possible right now. That's something that we released in OpenLMS 3.7, maintenance pack 2, or maintenance pack 1. I'm not quite sure at this point. But yes, that's introduced as part of the Microsoft Office 365 integration. So if you have that ready, or you want to engage with your customer support specialist to start the conversation related to it, be sure to reach out to us and we can help you with that. What is the first release of eCreators functionality for OpenLMS, I believe? So that's something we need to figure out, right, Dean? So you want to
my new boss is telling you sooner than later, that's for sure. Look, I'd like to say that we have some timelines as to how we roll things out fairly soon. But it's day one for me on the job officially today, so to get my stuff in order, and I'll happily be sending those time frames.
Dean, it's been like 10 hours that you've been a part of OpenLMS now. So I'm expecting to have some roadmap capability.
I can see everybody's asking the right questions though, so that's good.
Yeah.
As I sort of read further down this list, I'm going, yes, we've got that. Yes, we can do that. Yes, we can do that. Now, there's some of these things that I want to speak to many of you about, probably in more detail. But again, I think the whole community would benefit from that. So again, if you could log some of these questions in the community, that's great. That way everybody benefits and we can create something collaboratively together. We have a lot of these types of themes and pieces of functionality already in production. So we have customers already using them. And there's also other things that we've built on an enterprise scale for various other clients around the world too, many of which are open. So we're open to use those and discuss how they might be used in your own environments as well. And they relate to things like themes rather. Certainly, someone mentioned two-factor authentication. Well, we actually built something like that a little while back, which may be able to be recommissioned in that instance too. And where it makes sense moving forward, these are the sorts of things that we'd obviously like to offer in the core product too. So, look, I'm really excited about this. It doesn't take me much to actually get excited about this sort of stuff, but I'm excited that we can bring these things to you. It makes everybody's life a lot easier and brings great things to our winning community. So let's go.
Yeah, that's right. On your question, Angus, that you're saying what I want is the capacity to choose a theme associated based on values in the same profile. That's a great use case. And right now we support part of that already with a profile-based branding. That's a functionality that we have in Snap available for you. So if you want to check it out, it's not the full theme, but there are things that you can customize specifically for values that are present in the profile of the user. So
contact support and ask them about it, and we'll get you some good help on that too. It takes a little deft skill to get it going, but once you know what to do, it's pretty powerful.
Yeah, that's right. And I'm going to follow with you this question, Andy, which is there any way to add folders to a course and to organize your material better? Also, can you find a more effective way to copy material from course to course?
Those are great questions. So there are organizational folders for file objects, and then the sections themselves play the role of folders for organization otherwise. And so you can customize those sections, call them what you want to. Joseph, it sounds like we might benefit from doing maybe just even a webinar session with the faculty on the campus to help them get a little more familiar and comfortable with the way that OpenLMS organizes content, objects, and the structures. But there are definitely ways to do that organization, and there are some great ways to do course copy from other courses through the import tool, as well as some other fancy ways to go at it, like with the shopping cart and with that new centralized content management system where I can publish content out to courses. Labels and pages now will be the two elements that are in there, but we're adding more as we go. But yeah, let's get together and figure out a good way to communicate on all of that, because there are some really great ways to organize content.
Yes. Bernadette asks, does eCreators have the course recompilation plugin?
Yes, we do. So we call that programs and compliance. Mainly we've been using that in the corporate space, but that allows you to create custom programs or collections of courses which make up a program. And that's tied into a notification engine as well, where you can set notifications at various levels, which can be automatically shot to learners based on sets of rules that you can establish. So that feature was in our latest release, which came out just a few weeks ago, and has gone out across the existing customer base. So again, very happy to show you how that works. Perhaps if we even probably work together on putting a video on the community site to show how that works as well. So you can see that feature in more detail. But yeah, look, it's a very popular feature that a lot of our customers have been after for quite some time. So yeah, I'd be really keen to show you how that works.
Yeah. So guys, I think we're reaching to the end of this session. So we want to thank you for joining. This is the first time that we do this in YouTube. So please let us know what you think about the format and your experience in the community. You like it, you want to see us doing something different here, just let us know. We're so glad to have you here. Mark, Dean, Phil, Andy, any closing comments from you?
I think everybody just needs more Pablo.
Yes.
Yeah, I just want to say thanks to everybody for spending time with us and for being a part of our community. We're glad you're here, and we'll see you all again real soon.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.